but I see a very unique opportunity in myself in being an athlete that is able to compete at the top, at the front of these really, really big, really, really high level races that get a lot of attention, and be the athlete that is not just a bike racer. He's a bike racer and a type 1 diabetic.
A
And
hundred,
being able to
100%.
combine those two and gain some focus on the second part of who I am is what I really see. And
What's going on, everybody? My name is JP, and I want to welcome you into the Stable Cyclist Podcast, where we always talk about bikes, life mentality, and when the occasion arises, we will dive into mental health. My guest this week is Justin McQuerry. I met Justin, as you'll hear, at Gravel Worlds, or I guess we didn't really meet at Gravel Worlds, we met after the fact, but his story is inspiring. But before we dive into the podcast, I want to remind you that the Stable Cyclist Podcast is brought to you by Flow Formulas. If you are training for that big race, or you're just trying to live that healthy lifestyle and fuel well on the bike, then Flow Formulas is for you and is what you should be putting in your bottles during and after activity. They also sell amazing gel chews. They sell amazing gels that you can, or gel mix that you can make in a flask. And they have an amazing recovery mix as well. And if you have been following along for any amount of time on the show, you know that I used Flow Formulas in all of my racing this year, including the Matahe 100, a 12-hour backcountry race in which I drank 3 gallons of Flow Formulas mix, as well as some Red Bull and some Coca-Cola, and I had 0 GI distress. So it is safe to put down in large amounts, and I ran that mix at 100 grams per hour, or basically 100 grams per liter, without any problems. And if you go to buy Flow Formulas, you can use the code JohnPeter15 at checkout, and you will get a discount on what is in your basket when you check out. All right, enough of all that. Let's get Justin into the studio. Justin McQuerry, welcome to the Stable Cyclist Podcast. It is it's awesome to have you here. For people listening, we're recording this on September 15th. It'll probably come out in about 3 weeks from then. But we crossed paths for the first time in person because you make a cameo at the very beginning of episode 5 of the Chase Work docuseries. And in that cameo, people don't get to hear the conversation going on. But the conversation you were having with Drew Dillman, I was immediately like, now is not appropriate to talk to you about this, but I'm going to make a note, and we're going to have you on the podcast later because I think we're going to have an incredible conversation. So, long intro. Welcome to the show, man.
awesome. Thank you for having me on, John. I'm excited to officially meet you. I know we were literally standing next to each other at Gravel Worlds and didn't say a word, and you hit me up on Instagram right afterwards, and I'm honored and excited to be here and talk about me and my story and everything that makes Justin Justin.
Yeah, 100%, man. And so, where are you these days? Like, where do we find you located? I guess to start with.
That's a good question. Most of the time is spent on my bike, but I'm currently based in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Texas, but have been racing my whole life, so the travel game is very much in my blood, and I'd say 6 to 8 months out of the year on the road for training, racing, whatnot. But Austin, Texas is home base right now, and it's pretty nice. It's a little warm, but all
Yeah,
things cycling related, it's nice.
yeah. It sounds like an amazing city whenever I hear about it. So, bikes are a big part of your story. We're gonna get into some other things that are also a huge part of what I would call your identity, I guess. But how does a kid? Are you originally from Austin?
No, no, I'm not. So I was actually born in Washington State. My family moved to a small town in Texas, just south of Waco, when like before I can remember. So grew up in Lorena, Texas.
And
Basically,
how?
my
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, but yeah, basically my entire childhood was in this small town. But that being said, both my parents were not from Texas. So mom's family's from Europe, was in Europe a lot, traveling. Dad's family's from California. So I like to think that outside of school, I wasn't really in that town that often. So
Sure.
got to see a bunch of the world from a pretty young age, and that definitely leads into the cycling later on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because if people follow you on Instagram, and they should, one of the things in your kind of bio is that you are a dual citizen of the United States and the Netherlands, if I have my flags right. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. Yes, yeah, I do hold passports for both of those countries, which I don't
Okay.
know if that's 100% legal on both of the country standings, but I this might bite me in the butt later. But yeah,
Sure.
because because my mom was Dutch when I was born. It's part of the Dutch culture, Dutch law that I am a Dutch citizen as well.
Fantastic. So, did you spend much time in Europe growing up or traveling there at all?
Yeah, yeah. My sister and I would go with my mom to visit family. I'd say almost once a year for several weeks, probably a month tops at a time, basically since I can remember. Just either to the Netherlands, to my grandparents' place in the UK or in Scotland. So traveling quite a bit, like in grade school in
Yeah.
Texas. That's unique for sure.
Very, especially
Yeah,
from a small town.
yeah, yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
So how does the bike come into this? Is it, a lot of American kids growing up that look like you and me find bicycles pretty easily, especially in rural communities. But I guess, where does the influence of all this other stuff come in, and to the point where you are like, I want to do this for my job?
Definitely. Yeah. So growing up in small town Texas, the only sports that mattered in school were football, baseball, basketball a little bit, but it was, like classic Texas sports. And
Sure.
my build, my mentality just didn't really fit in with that. And it was like, yeah, that's cool, but it seemed pretty isolated. And I actually got into bikes pretty young. My dad was an avid cyclist, didn't race at all, but he liked riding, and got me on a bike. I enjoyed it. We went out to a couple of the local club rides, group rides in Waco. Enjoyed that. They kind of convinced me to go to a race when I was pretty young. I think like 10 or so. And we have a really, really good mountain bike series here in Texas, both cross country in the spring, cross country in the fall, and then there's a marathon series over the winter. And the Texas mountain bike community really, really is what got me like fully invested in cycling. And the races were cool. I wasn't terrible at the first handful of races I went to with like no training, no prep, like still flat pedals, tennis shoes. And I was like, this is sick. This is so much fun. And yeah, I when I was 13, I was like, all right, this is the year I'm going to train and take it seriously. And then the first training ride I went out on, I crashed pretty hard out on the mountain bike and tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder, actually, like something 13-year-olds don't do.
No.
At all. And I was like in rehab for like 6 months. Like I tore, I think it was like four of the five rotator cuff muscles were just like
Wow.
ripped off the bone. It was pretty rough. And for whatever reason, something in me was like, all right, bikes are not going to take me out that easily. So I was rehabbing, getting mobility back, and I wanted to get back on a bike as soon as I could. And a road bike was recommended before getting back on the mountain bike. So
Sure.
started riding the road bike, doing that a little bit more regularly, and then started looking into road races in Texas. And at the time, there was a really, really robust local series within Texas, and started racing there. Turns out, like putting a little bit more time and effort into training and preparing for races, like means better results, and I really didn't look back from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned before we hit record that at some point, and I don't know at what point in this part of the story, that you have another reality that you're having to deal with all the time. And when we met, the conversation that I didn't let the audio out because I was like, this is going to be too distracting if people hear this conversation. But you and Drew Dillman are talking in the documentary, and he says, it's the fastest guy with diabetes. And you were like, and then you guys kind of talked about where you thought you might rank, as a worldwide rider with diabetes. But where does that come into the story? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, as you know, being in middle school, dealing with that. Obviously, that's a huge piece of your story and still is. So, how does that enter the picture?
Yeah, 100%. And it really is the only reality I know. I am type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old. So I do not remember life before diabetes at all. So it's
Sure.
in my position right now, I think that is really, really a blessing because I don't know any different. I can't like I don't have any regrets, and I've been able to do because of the mindset and the way I've like grown up with diabetes and the people that have been around me and the influence I've had and maybe a little bit of my own stubbornness, I've never seen diabetes as a limitation or something that should be like considered for my own personal ambitions at
Sure.
all. But yeah, growing up, I yeah was type 1 diabetic, and maybe this also played into why I kind of gravitated towards cycling as opposed to more traditional sports in the American context, because it's definitely easier to manage diabetes when you're not getting hit and so when you have type 1 diabetes, you're oftentimes wearing either an insulin pump, a continuous glucose monitor sensor. Like there's things on your body. You could also do manual daily injections, which I transferred from that to using an insulin pump. So I had something on me when I was pretty young, and I it just worked out better for me that way. And
Sure.
because of that, it was like, especially for endurance sports, it was like running, cycling, much, much easier to manage. And I could see that the level of activity I was doing would have like pretty direct impact on type 1 diabetes control. And it was cool because it's like a new game to play to figure out like how to manage your diabetes the most effectively to get the outcome you want when you're on the bike. But then because of the activity you're doing on the bike, you can also have more predictable outcomes off the bike. And it was
Okay.
pretty really, really cool to see it that way.
How hard was it to learn how just like learn that predictability though? Because I'm guessing as you got, you know, training in high school is one thing, training as you get older and this becomes like I want to do this as a career, the volume increases, the amount of nutrition increases, and then even just the last 5 years what we've learned about carb intake and sugar intake, how what has the learning curve been like for you with that?
Definitely. So I would say the learning curve is that's a good question. I don't really know how to nuance this, but the learning curve for nutrition and experimenting with nutrition on the bike, off the bike, whatnot, that's like nothing to me because all of this experimentation is something I've had to do for my own type 1 diabetes control
Sure.
since I was 2 years old. So
Of course.
like doing these little trial and errors and failing a lot, like you're not going to get it right every time and you're not going to get it right for a while, and then but figuring out a way to go about trying something new to get to where you want to be in a safe and predictable manner is something
Sure.
that's just like baked into me because of type 1 diabetes. So in the last few years, there's also been like pretty incredible advancements in technology. Like continuous glucose monitors are huge.
Yeah.
I download like a side app that I have on my Garmin head unit so that I can see my blood sugar from my CGM like all during my training rides, all during my races. And that's not something I had access to like 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like when I was younger, growing up with diabetes. And like having access to that information makes this experimentation process significantly easier and much more streamlined in my book. But it's like going in I can just imagine the last 3 years going from moderate carb. I wasn't
Yeah.
ever like a super, super low carb guy. Like I think having diabetes kind of helped be a little bit ahead of the curve of like you
Hmm.
need carbohydrates to maintain energy levels in the body, and the being in ketosis and not eating when you're riding, that just doesn't work when you have type 1
Yeah.
diabetes because
Yeah.
exercise requires that sugar, and since my body isn't relaying the hormones to like dump sugar from the or liver glycogen. If
Yeah.
I don't eat, my blood sugar just goes low, and that's just a whole bad thing. So I had to be like continually eating basically since I started training seriously to
Sure.
maintain blood sugar control. And then when we started looking at upping the amount of carb per hour, it was mostly just a game of like, all right, we know we need to consume 100 grams of carb per hour, but you might need to take a little bit of insulin while you're exercising, which is something that's, I'd say, I don't know what the right word for this here is, but in, I don't want to say modern, but like in the most, what I guess what most people would think, what's like the stereotype for exercise with diabetes, like you can eat, like it maintains your blood sugar, that's it. You don't really have to like manage the insulin control while you're exercising because you're exercising, so it's burning off the sugar that you're
Yeah.
eating. But in this high carb movement, we're consuming like high carb is like an understatement, like having
Yeah.
100 grams,
Yeah.
150 grams of carb that's just pure sugar every hour when you're racing is that's a lot. So now I'm in the last couple of years like trying to figure out the right amount of insulin to take for each hour of the race. Like for Unbound, for instance, it's 10 hours long.
Oh wow.
my
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my insulin sensitivity will change throughout that 10 hours. Like in the first 3 hours I'll be taking more insulin, and then like at a certain point I'll stop taking insulin. It's and figuring out the right amount of insulin to take, like varying on insulin sensitivity throughout the exercise or duration of the event, is that's probably the biggest part of the learning curve that I'm still experimenting with now.
Yeah, because are you having to kind of do all that math off of your head unit on the fly and what you know?
Yep, yeah, a lot. So
That's crazy.
yes and no. That's a lot of that's coming from the head unit, but it's also coming from like there's so many things that affect blood sugar:
Sure.
stress, fatigue,
Sure.
how
Yep.
much you slept the night before, what you ate for breakfast, how much fat you've eaten, how much protein there is, like if it's sugar from just one sugar source or if it's sugar from like both glucose and fructose, like everything affects it in varying degrees and varying ways, and it can be different from day to day too. So like over a training block, insulin sensitivity doesn't change linearly. It's
Right.
very, that's very unpredictable, and it becomes predictable with experience. And that's like I'm using that plus all the data that I have in front of me to try and make the most educated decision for my fueling and diabetes management over training and racing.
Sure. Yeah, and I feel bad. We're like right on the front here. We dive into this, and I feel like I'm putting you into a museum exhibit as I ask you all these questions. Just I, I have not. We haven't talked about things like this, obviously, and so I'm gonna. You said safe and predictable is how you test this stuff out. What does that mean for you? Is that in a on a trainer in a closed off setting where you're not going to worry about being stranded, or what does safe and predictable mean when you're trying to figure these things out?
Definitely. So safe and predictable for me is like every training ride, every race I go on, I always have all of the food I need with me on me at the start. So like again, Unbound for instance, I start with I'd say 90%, okay, maybe Unbound's a bad example, but like races that are shorter than Unbound, I will have 100% of the food plus some extra with me at the start of the race. In the event I like miscalculate and things go like I'm more sensitive to insulin and I need to consume more food
Sure.
to maintain my blood sugar, always going to have that on me, like just point blank. That and making dosing decisions is it's like a percentage game. Like I know what I would normally take if I wasn't exercising, or if I was exercising and I was a little more insulin sensitive, and then I'll back down on that dose to like take much smaller doses than I would normally would to be as safe as I can. Granted, there
Yeah.
is some risk involved, obviously, because there's
Yep.
exercise, you're on your bike, like you got to focus on like actually riding your bike, and you can't always just
Yep.
be staring at one number that may or may not be like actually relaying from my phone, which is relaying
Right.
from my CGM, which
Right.
could like just not work at a certain point. Like that is possible. So being very in touch with like my own feeling and like really knowing, being really intuitive with how my body's reacting is really key. I'm like really paying attention to not just the biomarkers, but just like overall sensation, overall feeling, and trying to extrapolate what's diabetes and what's exercise related, and
Sure.
like try and like combine the two and figure out, okay, this went well, this didn't. What do we need to change for next time? And train like thankfully with gravel racing now we get to train a lot. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of time to test new things out.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, you're like, this is all I know. This is just like, this is not like an add-on identity. It's just as long as I have memory, I have to deal with this.
Yeah.
As you get into the bike world though, and you transition from like high school kid to, I guess I cut off your story as we dove into this. How do we get
Okay.
from how do we get from high school kid that's just jacked on his flat pedals to you're doing this professionally? And maybe that looks different initially than how it looks today. But what does that trajectory look like first before I bring in all my other questions I
No,
now have?
definitely. I'm an open book for all of this and is all part of my story. Whether or not this story is like A to B chronologically or not, it's still
That's
part of
okay.
it. And
We're just
it's
having
the
coffee. We're just having coffee
definitely.
right now.
I love it. It's the way I think too, so it works with me. But so flat pedal cycling Justin was middle school. High school cycling Justin was clipping on the road, like trying to take it seriously. So when I was, this probably was freshman year of high school, I started like being really interested in cycling. It was like this is cool. And this was also about the time Team Type 1 started to really gain a little bit of traction in public cycling media. They're a team with Type 1 diabetic athletes that were racing at the professional level. And I was like, oh, like I already kind of knew like the sky was the limit, but now I can actually see that like athletes with type 1 diabetes are able to race at the highest level. And I was like, all right, well, that's done. All right, goal there, be professional athlete. It wasn't necessarily to be a professional athlete for Team Type 1, it was to be a professional athlete because I
Sure.
that was the dream, that was the goal. It still is the dream, still is the goal. So high school, interested in cycling, and when I was 17, I had the option or opportunity to go to Europe to race, do like a month of junior kermesses in Belgium, and it was the first time I'd traveled to Europe on my own, outside of family. I had brought my bike to Europe over over the past like few years prior to that, just to like train in Europe and like ride in Europe, and I loved that already. But then I had the option to like actually compete at really competitive races in the heart of cycling and was like, there's no way I can't be doing this. So I have to pursue this as much
Yeah.
as I can.
Yeah.
Um, right out of high school, I had the option to race with what Team Type 1 became Team Nova Nordisk. And I had the option to race with the Team Nova Nordisk development team full time. So just kind of went out of high school into racing full time and again, never looked back. Raced with them for 4 years. Did did a bunch of UCI racing, like raced all over the world, all over Europe. Did I think relatively well, and didn't get the contract I thought I was going to get, so
Sure.
kind of left. Did my own thing. And 2019, I signed a contract with the Team Skyline Continental team for the. It was the first year they were a Continental team, and whether we want to consider a continental team professional or not, that's kind of some nuance. But I grew up in the age of like when Jelly Belly was a pro team. They were
Yeah.
continental, but they were
That's a pro
pro.
team.
Yeah, and we were, and so I that at that point I was like, all right, this is this is it. I'm professional now, and I'm taking this as seriously as I can to be the best athlete on and off the bike because I had more than just racing going on, like with the
Yeah.
whole diabetes thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
raced with Team Skyline for 3 years and then went back to Team Nova Nordisk development team as they'd gone from a club team to a continental team and had the option again to race all over the world in Europe, in Asia. Racing UCI races, like trying to like get the big pro contract to be like racing like full-time professional. And the in my stint with the Nova Nordis Continental team, that's when gravel started entering the picture. And
Okay.
my 20 in 2024, my last year on Nova Nordisk, I had a really big focus on gravel and in kind of in conjunction with road, and just realized that gravel spoke to me more. I enjoyed it more. I had a little bit more success there, and also the ability to kind of like create your own program was huge for me because I was never being paid enough to like just train and race full time. So like I was always doing something else on the side. A lot of time in bike shops. I was actually managing a shop here in Austin for a while, and the negotiating with sponsors, like doing outreach, that came very easily for me. And I enjoyed that part a lot. So being able to combine that with my own professional cycling career seemed like all of my worlds kind of coming together. And
Yeah.
2024, I quit the team. I canceled my contract in July and just went full on gravel. And now we're here, full on gravel pro, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's amazing. Uh, when you say you're racing in like Asia with the UCI, are we talking like Qinghai Lake or whatever it's called, and those races over there that you hear wonderful stories and horror stories about?
I did Tour of Thailand in
Okay.
2017. That was an amazing race, amazing event, amazing experience. 10 out of 10. No horror stories from that at all. And I did race in Turkey a lot as well.
Okay.
Maybe a few more horror stories there. But
Okay.
and I guess that's kind of a combination of Asia and Europe.
Yeah.
The One of the last races I did there, Tour of Istanbul, we were on actually both the European and the Asian continent on one stage, which was pretty awesome. But
That's crazy.
yeah, that's about all the Asia I have. I have no China, no Japan experience,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is where I think a lot of the crazy, crazy Asia racing stories come from.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I've read too many Phil Gaiman books and listened to too many stories from him. So, you said gravel spoke to you.
Yeah,
What you were getting to travel the world and see all the sights and live this lifestyle that's different, but definitely something that most people don't get to do. So, what about things like Nebraska cornfields and Kansas rollers spoke to you in a way that made you say, "Man, I'm here for that."
definitely. I think it's kind of a twofold approach there. One, the racing suited me a little bit better.
Okay.
It required a little bit more technicality.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, like while I wasn't like an elite mountain biker when I was young, I started in cycling on a mountain bike. So being off road is like that's the most fun you can have on a bike, period.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I've It's so cool. And being able to like you can have serious performance gains in like your racing performance based on bike setup, based on handling skills, based on course knowledge. It didn't all just come down to who had the most expensive road bike, who had the most team staff at a race. Like you could piece together this gravel performance based on so many different factors that weren't like money oriented. And I really like that because like I work hard just in day-to-day life to like manage diabetes, and I work hard in day-to-day life to manage my cycling. So being able to really use all of that hard work to gain better performance I really like that. But the second thing is the community, the people.
Mm-hmm.
Being an athlete with type 1 diabetes, it's kind of been my driving passion from day one to do something that stands out for the people in this diabetes community. Because like when I grew up, like if it weren't for me like being interested in cycling, I could very easily see how there might be some more limitations or barriers around what maybe I should have done or like been told I should do. But thanks in part to like the stubbornness I've had, like the people around me that were like, no, you just go for it. Like if you want
Yeah.
to work for it and you can do it, doesn't matter if you have diabetes or not. And if I can share that through cycling, through events, I want to do that. And in gravel, we get the opportunity to talk with people
Yeah.
who I may never get the opportunity to like ever see at a road race in China or a road race in Turkey. Like
Yes.
that's a very different experience. And when you get to connect with people like that and show like actually show them and be there in person and show them who you are and like talk about your story and like give context to what's going on, I think that is the most impactful use of my time in the sport for the outreach and advocacy I want to do, and that's the big one right there.
Yeah, and that's spot on. I couldn't agree more. And especially like, I'm a big mental health platform person, and just being able to be at races and connect with people and have that relationship building is really important. And so I can totally see where that would be the same for you. How do you envision that platform developing? Because like, if I'm listening correctly, this is just over a year ago that you were like, line in the sand, I'm going to do gravel. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, so I think my first gravel race was 2022. I actually it was Rattlesnake Gravel Grind 2022. That did one gravel race that year. Did a few more the next year. Got the chance to race world championships in 2023, and then 2024. It was the shift from like trying to do road and gravel to full gravel. Yeah.
Gotcha. And for those keeping score at home, this will now be the second podcast episode in a row where someone referenced rattlesnake gravel as something you need to go do. So,
Yep.
yeah,
I
head
highly recommend. Highly
head to
recommend.
Texas, folks. What does it look like to you when like you're envisioning what advocacy looks like for this, and with this platform and this new kind of community that you get to work in? Is it? I know you have a YouTube channel. You're very active on social media, but what does that look like for you as how you tell the story and how you create advocacy for people with type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, that's a good question because, and I think with gravel still evolving as quickly as it is, I don't have a clear-cut picture on, I don't have like a business plan on what I want
Yeah.
this pursuit of advocacy to be. But I see a very unique opportunity in myself in being an athlete that is able to compete at the top, at the front of these really, really big, really, really high level races that get a lot of attention and be the athlete that is not just a bike racer. He's a bike racer and a type 1 diabetic. And
100,
being able to
100%.
combine those two and gain some focus on the second part of who I am is what I really see. And I at this point the big thing I can see doing is just growing the community, growing the awareness, getting
Yeah.
more athletes with type 1 diabetes, regardless of skill, regardless of age, regardless of gender, out there at these events
Yeah.
either to
100.
participate or to race. And yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. What has it been like for you? As you said, you have these relationships with a lot of sponsors from your bike shop time, and I believe you said to me earlier you're still working at a bike shop from time to time, which means you still see these people. What is what have sponsors support been like as you build this kind of, I mean, you're building the privateer model on the one hand,
Yeah.
but you're also trying to like build advocacy in. And I can relate a lot to this because I am not nearly as fast as you, but I work with a lot of sponsors because of mental health advocacy. And so what has that looked like, and how have those conversations gone? Or maybe you haven't really tapped into that yet.
No, 100%. And I would say it's something I've partially tapped into, and I definitely think that I have room to improve on that for sure. But it's a really unique part of my experience with these sponsors. And I've had nothing but overwhelming support and
Yeah.
overwhelming like go for it. We support this and appreciate it. We like this. We want you to do it. It's being authentic. Like it's
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
I try to portray that as honestly and straightforward and right to the point as possible. And because of that, I've been able to have success building my own program and have a really, really solid program. State, Moose Packs, like I can list them off right now. But it's um it's cool to be able to contact these people that I've worked with professionally in like
Yeah.
a business setting and then talk to them about my own personal professional career, and they're like, yes, we like that. We can either It's either yes, we like that, we can support it, or yes, we like that, we just don't have the budget right now.
Hmm.
I don't hear people, or I haven't heard pushback on like, oh, what, this is stupid, what are you doing here? Like that's thankfully I maybe I'm like just I've flavored it or worded it just right enough to where it's like able to able to really land, but that's part of what I'm trying to do. And that's, I think, also part of the job of a privateer, right? Is
Yeah.
to sell yourself in an authentic way. Because if
Yeah.
you're not, then you're doing everyone it's a negative there, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the word. And you said it at the beginning, you're an open book, and authenticity matters most because that's what people find to be real. That's what inspires people. And so, yeah, you're gonna keep finding the support that you need. And I doubt anybody's gonna, like you said, there's two answers, and neither of them is no.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
You mentioned that when you were first starting to ride a lot, Norvo Nordisk and Team Type One was really inspiring to you. Beyond that, who were inspirational figures for you growing up, or maybe even currently, as Type One diabetics that you look at and you're like, yeah, I can do this, and maybe it's more in the advocacy world right now than necessarily on the bike for you.
Definitely. So this might sound a little crazy, and I'm sure it will, but it's from a very young age. I my first concrete memory of life in general, just like the first thing that's in my head, I was like 5 or 6 or 7 years old. I don't know how old I was, but my dad had given me insulin for dinner. And I remember having like some temper tantrum, hissy fit, and like storming off to my room without eating. Like I'd taken insulin, gone to my bedroom, and like just dipped out. Remember sometime later crawling into the kitchen because my blood sugar was tanking. I hadn't eaten, but like literally dragging myself across the carpet because I couldn't walk. Like I was losing motor function because my blood sugar was tanking. And there was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of orange juice on the dinner table. And I was like just trying to like get food into me to like feel like a person again. And I remember getting a lesson that it was like, yeah, you can't do this. Like you have
Yeah,
diabetes, you have to respect it, you have to like manage this. And if you do, you can do whatever. So like take that with a grain of salt. But like at that point, I kind of like jumped into this reality of like, all right, I'm alive, I'm a person, I have diabetes. How can we do what I want to do? So because of that, I've had a lot of individualism, and I really feel like a lot of my motivation has come from within myself, and like it's
yeah,
been me that has been
yeah,
the inspiration to do like these kind of crazy and ridiculous things, which like maybe I'm succeeding in, maybe I'm not, whatever it is. But I haven't had like one role model or like one
yeah,
person that I've seen in sport, in media, in diabetes, outside of diabetes, that has been like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be like me, and I want
yeah,
to be like
yeah. Hell
this.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's pretty much it. It's there. I think because of social media now, there are a lot of highly regarded figures, both in sport, in modeling, in like a lot of different things. Like a couple months ago, Barbie released this line of type 1 diabetic Barbie dolls, with they released with, I think it may have been like one pro WNBA player and a couple supermodels that have type 1 diabetes. And it's like that stuff didn't exist when I was growing up. And
Right. Yeah.
I love seeing this, and I want to be able to do that in my own circle and in my own niche.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all me. That's it.
Yeah. Listen, you don't have to explain a raging internal drive to push yourself to me. I
That's
completely understand that. So,
good. I
yeah, right
appreciate this
on.
is landing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Even if no one else, I get it. So, uh, what do you see as like you're at the end of your first full gravel season? By the time this comes out, Big Sugar will be just around the corner. Um, what does the future look like? What are you trying to do? Is the goal to get into the Grand Prix? Is the goal to grow your sponsorship base? All of the above. What's next for you?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I would say my focus for the coming season, and I can really only like speak like a couple months ahead of time, just because I
Sure.
don't have like a 10-year business plan for my life in general.
Yeah.
So like I'm a little more short-sighted in that goal. But So this year, first full gravel season, I actually stayed entirely in the US. This is my first year only staying in the US in a long time, which is kind of ridiculous to say. But because of how gravel is growing, both within the US and internationally, I want to go, I want to race internationally. And
Sure, of course.
I think that's where my message can be most appreciated and and have the best traction as well, because racing within the US is great, but as we see with like any sort of racing, like especially the US gravel racing, like it's taken kind of with a grain of salt, even though the athletes here are top tier talent, like nationally and internationally, being able to go outside of the US and still succeed is huge. And I am very interested in racing more internationally next year, probably a little bit more of the the UCI Gravel World Series, and
Sure.
a lot of focus on the Gravel Earth Series.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
I met the promoters, Gerard and his wife in Iowa and Nebraska, and it was really cool to meet them. They were
Yeah.
really genuine and authentic folks that seemed to be very excited on just the way gravel is evolving. And it seems like the events they really highlight and put focus on are generally good events. They're a little
Yeah.
less racing's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
They're more community oriented
Yeah.
outside of the US. And because of that, and also because of the like really fantastic media they do, I think being able to focus a little bit more on that would help bolster my ambitions to the best of
Yeah.
my ability. But kind of mixing that and then like all the big US stuff, so I might just be on the road for 50 weeks next year. So we'll see exactly soon.
Yeah. It's kind of a moving circus, isn't it?
Definitely.
Once we all get rolling. So yeah. Cool, man. Well, we always finish things up with a kind of series of they're not really rapid fire, but they have nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far usually. So
Sweet.
I guess we call them rapid fire, but these are the questions that if I don't ask, I get a whole bunch of DMs from people saying, you forgot to ask this and this. So this is what the people want, man. So here we go.
I'm here
Uh,
for it.
yeah, you and I are going to go on a long bomb gravel ride. And this is a really interesting for you question now that I think of it. But we're going to go on a super long gravel ride, like 5-6 hours, maybe longer. We're just chilling. It doesn't matter where, but we're going to run out or come close to running out of supplies. It sounds like you don't ever run out. But we're gonna need to stop at a gas station, my friend, and we're gonna need to get some snacks and treats to drink. So, what are you getting? And like I said, if this turns into like the diabetic snack question, that's okay.
Oh, hey, I hear it. So okay, so I got two questions for you.
Yeah.
Are we fueling up for a couple more hours, or is this like a just
Uh,
a one stop deal?
we probably got like 2 hours left in the ride.
Okay,
Is usually where this lands for me
gotcha.
personally, where I'm like, okay, how are we gonna
All
get
right,
home? So,
fair.
also this is this is not like a quick trip or something fancy where you're gonna find like nice real food. This is kind of a
Yeah,
crap hole, rural gas station. They might be selling bait in the back or something. So,
sweet.
anyways,
Well, that thankfully I've stopped at a lot of those in Texas, so my order's pretty go to.
yeah, okay,
So
let's go.
for the immediate, like as soon as we're getting to the gas station, that I'm gonna eat ASAP. It's gonna be a Fanta and a Snickers. I love Fanta more than any other sugar drink on the market in any capacity. 100%. It's got to be a Fanta, and it's gonna be
Uh,
a tall boy Fanta as well.
Okay, okay.
It's gonna be a Snickers, just standard Snickers. I can't go wrong with that.
Amen.
It,
Yes,
yeah.
agree.
How can we go wrong with that? And
Yeah.
then for the next 2 hours, it's probably gonna be the cucumber lime Gatorade. If we get like kind of lucky, like I'm like kind of like singling this out here, but like that's the go-to.
Okay.
And cucumber lime Gatorade and probably two strawberry Pop Tarts, like just to
Okay.
make sure
That's
I
a
can
yeah.
get through. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll have the Gatorade that you want, but everything else, I like the crappiest gas stations I've been in, they've got it all. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
right on, man. Those are good choices. Those are good
Thank you.
choices. We'll make it back safely.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I'll watch you do all your mathematic calculations as we put all these new foods in as we head out the door.
I
So,
Thankfully they're not too new for me, so I've
okay.
I've got
Okay.
experience there.
Yeah. Safe and predictable. So,
Yes, yes.
yes. Okay. Next one. This one, I think I already know the answer. You ride with headphones in, no?
100%. I have music going, podcast going, like 99.8% of my ride, but it's just one headphone in, right ear all the time, nothing in the left ever.
Yeah, that means in like 20 years, we know you'll be deaf in that ear, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Oh, I mean, like that 20-year window might be getting now. I've been cycling for a while,
Yeah,
so
it's true.
it's coming up. But
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I'm the same. I always have just the right one in so I can hear traffic.
Yep.
So what's on the Justin McQuerry Spotify playlist when it's like go to the well time?
Ooh, this is all right. There's really like two big moods, and one is like punk metal. It's
Of
Slipknot, I
course. Yeah.
Prevail, All That
Yeah.
Remains, like
Yeah.
kind of like 2010s era punk metal, like
Yeah.
really like that's I'm gonna be smashing. Or it's East European, German, Dutch, Belgian DJs that you've never heard of that only play in like bars that are probably the size of my living room, which is
Yeah.
like 15 square feet right now,
Yeah.
that are absolute bangers.
Yeah.
That's the two go-tos, and that's like 100% of my Spotify.
They're only DJing in the clubs with the concrete block walls that are sweating.
Yes, yes, yeah. There's actually, yeah, a lot of the like there's like these hour-long DJ mixes, and one of the more popular channels that I watch is like filmed in what looks like a bathroom, and that's where I assume exclusively the artists I listen to play.
As you should. If you have only one banger song to get you through, what's the song that you're turning on?
Ooh, one song. That's good. That's good. Can my one song be like an hour-long playlist on YouTube? No, that doesn't
Eh,
count. No, no, no. I get it. I get it. It's probably going to be uh, Amelie Len's. Uh, she's a German DJ.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There's like three songs that come right to the top of my mind. Or Datsko. Actually, I'd probably go Datsko, The Color Violet. That's a good one. That's a banger.
Right on, right on. Well, and the reality is here, if you're part of the Stable Cyclist community, as we continue to interview people, you're just building out your list of these banger songs from all of you. So that's why we got to keep asking. So
I like this. This playlist might be
yeah,
eclectic, but I'm happy to add that one on
I
there.
I think most of ours are if we actually sit back and look at what like is in the in the interval, the hard ride jam mix or whatever we want to
Yeah.
call it. It's like this is all over the place, but
Yep. Yep.
oh
Nah, same. Same.
yeah, okay. What I'm sponsored by Wahoo, so I say this is a Wahoo question. I'm not offended
Mhm.
if you're a Garmin guy or whatever, but when you're riding, like what is on your primary screen? So, like for example, I don't have my map on ever,
Mhm.
and unless I'm like deep in a race chasing someone and I don't want to pay attention. But normally my screen is just like watts, whatever gear I'm in, like how fast I'm going, and I don't know, heart rate maybe. There's very little information on there, and it's in big numbers. So what do you got?
Gotcha. So currently I use a Garmin. I have no head unit sponsor. I'm electively using Garmin purely because of the plugin to see my CGM. But so I have two go-to ride screens, and I guess I have three. Like there's a race screen, an interval screen, and then like just a normal riding screen. The primary normal riding screen that gets viewed most of the time is the map on top, and then there's current power, lap power, and blood sugar on there.
Sure.
If I have a working heart rate monitor, heart rate will be on there as well, but currently I've sweated through my heart rate monitor and I can't get one to last more than like 2 months, so that
Yep.
is probably going to get replaced maybe
I,
at some point.
yes.
But so that's the primary riding screen. The interval screen is no map, but it's lap time, lap power, lap average power, heart rate, cadence, and blood sugar. And then the race screen is lap time, lap distance, and blood sugar.
Gotcha. I would guess most people in the audience do not have blood sugar on their bingo card for things to put on the Garmin. It
Yep.
also sounds like you should talk to our friend Joe Gettle about. I think he's with Garmin, no? And he probably has a contact who
Ooh,
could.
ooh.
It sounds like you have a good reason to talk to them with that unit working with your monitor. So
I might have to hit Joe up. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time. Actually, we spent a lot of time at Unbound this year together, Jason. So might have to use that card now if I can.
yeah, what are relationships for but a good sponsor contact info, right?
Yeah, the life of a privateer for sure.
100%. Okay, this one. A lot of people really concerned about your answer for this. Are you a Harry Potter person or Lord of the Rings?
Ooh. Oh, this is, you guys are probably not going to like this answer, but probably a neither.
All right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I did read all of the Harry Potter books out of order. Didn't watch any of the movies. Um, and I have watched one of the Lord of the Rings, I think. And
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think either of them were right up my alley, so
Sure.
I'd have to go with neither.
Are you more of like a Star Wars, Star Trek type person?
Yeah, it'd be Star Wars for sure.
Okay. See, now like a fourth of the audience just got lit on fire with that answer too. So amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. This is a new question that just came up. I just interviewed the Holy Spirit of Gravel like 2 days ago.
Nice. Another
And
Texan.
yeah, exactly. And she brought up Rattlesnake Gravel. So, and she really likes to sing, apparently, how you pronounce it in Texas, karaoke.
Yep.
And so, if you were to go sing karaoke on a Thursday night at the cantina, what is the song you're pumping into the jukebox to sing for all of us?
Ooh, this is gonna be very off base based on my former music answers, but it's gonna be a man or the Man from Waco by Charlie Crockett.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We were also talking about how much fun it might be, perhaps at Unbound next year, to get everyone together at some point and have a big karaoke sing along.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
and
Count me in for that.
yeah, yeah. So like maybe Wednesday night or Thursday as everyone's rolling in and has time to recover. So yeah,
Oh,
it
I like that. This is a
could
good stable cyclist, Holy Spirit of Gravel,
yeah,
pre-unbound
collab.
activation.
Yeah,
I like that. That's
exactly.
good. That is really good.
Yep. So we'll keep people posted on that, but now we might have to work on it because we've talked about it 2 shows in a row. So okay,
Sweet.
last one is like a two-part. The
Okay.
first part is what is your favorite race that you've ever done, and then the second part is what's a race, and you kind of alluded to this already, but what's a race you haven't done that you're like I'm here for that.
Yeah. So, favorite race, I'm going to give two answers for this. Favorite race course I've ever done was actually this past weekend in Mammoth Tough, hosted by Amanda Sheik and Dave Sheik. They,
Right on.
that course, 10 out of 10, the coolest riding I've ever done in the world, period. I really can't say enough good things about that. It was so, so cool. Kicked my ass, but that's what elevation does. So, got to prepare, and I didn't. The probably the coolest race experience I had. Again, I got two answers for this, but the like I want to say two. Yeah, I'll say two. So UCI Gravel World Championships last year in Leuven, east of Brussels. 150, 180,000 spectators along the entire course. The race went terribly for me, but being able to race in the heart of cycling with everyone out there screaming, there were so many people that shouted my name and I knew like two people in the area, and they were supposed to be feeding me, and they were there in the feed zone. So like
Sure.
I don't know who these people were, but that was such a surreal, cool cycling experience. Um, and second one to the coolest race would be Tour of Ukraine 2017, stage one. First day was a prologue. I made the break, and it was UCI 2.2, but it was the first time I was ever in a breakaway in a UCI race. Absolutely rode myself into the ground. It was so hard, but like that was really the moment in my cycling career when I was like, oh dang, I might actually be able to like be okay at the
Yeah.
sport. Even though I'd been
Yeah.
racing previously at like a high level nationally, I'd done okay in a couple international races, but like actually getting up the road, being able to ride in a break in the first stage of this big race in Europe, that was awesome. That was cool.
Yeah. Where have you not raced that you would love to go do?
I haven't raced in South America at all. Some of the races in Colombia, some of the races in Ecuador looks cool. There was actually a gravel race in Chile this past weekend that it looked sloppy, but it looked really cool from what I saw. South America would be fun. Um, I'd probably also say Japan. Like the Japan Cup races look rad, and I think that would be really high on the list. But I've kind of crossed every country in Europe that I really want to race in off, and that would be over all of them for sure.
Yeah, those are fantastic answers just because they're so diverse from anything
Yeah,
anybody's ever said before, and I love it.
cool.
It's good to look outside the U.S. once in a while and just see awesome things going on there. So, yeah,
Yeah,
cool, man. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing so many parts of your story and some of the intricacies of your story. And where can people find you if they want to follow along with your story?
awesome. Yeah, thanks again for having me on, John. If you guys and audience members want to follow me, I'm Justin McQuerry on all forms of social media. It's J underscore McQuerry on Instagram. YouTube's just first name, last name. Facebook, first name, last name. And I'd say Instagram and YouTube are the two big ones that I put most of the focus into. So if you want to follow along on some more type 1 diabetes and gravel riding and racing, that's where it's at.
And if you want to see that incredible mammoth tough course he just described, you have the entire route nonstop POV, correct?
Yep, yep. That's one of the kind of cool niches I've fallen into with my YouTube channel is doing full race POVs from start to finish, whether it's Unbound, Mammoth, Rattlesnake, whatever race I'm at, as long as I don't get told I can't run a camera, like the UCI World Championships, there's most likely going to be a race
Yeah, of
footage of it.
course. Right on, man. Well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks for hanging out with Justin and me today. Do me a favor, and if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and share it with somebody. That is the number one way that we can play around the algorithm, whether it's on YouTube or in the audio platforms. Also, you can help out and actually play into the algorithm. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the interview. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can give us a 5-star review, please, and thank you. And on Spotify, of course, you can also leave a comment. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Also, the final episodes of the Bootleg Miles have been coming out. The Bootleg Miles was a series on YouTube this summer and spring as people followed me to the Mahache 100 and to my other races. And coming out, either it just came out or it's coming out very soon, it is how to make a proper gas station run when you're in the middle of a ride. We're going to talk through that. And so head over to the Stable Cyclist YouTube channel and enjoy that. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for supporting what I'm doing here on this channel. And most importantly, remember, you are loved.